Welcome to the Cenario Podcast, your guide to mental health and well-being. Each episode, we uncover practical tools, discuss expert insights, and explore how supplements can transform your mental health journey. Get ready to learn, grow, and thrive with us.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something that affects way more people than you might think, and that is depression.
That's right. And we're going to be going through this depression checklist that you sent over.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to try to pull out the most useful and interesting insights from it.
Definitely. And, one of the most important things to realize right off the bat is that, depression is not just feeling sad or down. It's a genuine medical condition. It's actually called major depressive disorder, or MDD.
Oh, okay. So it's not just like a case of the blues, huh?
Not at all. It really affects, your thoughts, your feelings, and even your body.
Wow. I was really surprised when I first skimmed over this checklist to see all the different signs and symptoms. Like, they even list different types of depression. And I was like, I didn't even know there were types of depression.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that.
And then how things like what you eat and how well you sleep can play a role.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty amazing how much we're learning about this.
It is. And this checklist is a great starting point for recognizing those sometimes subtle signs that a lot of people miss.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into it. This checklist breaks things down into emotional, physical, and behavioral symptoms. And maybe we can start with the emotional stuff.
Sounds good.
So we've got those sort of like classic things, right? Like persistent sadness and feeling hopeless. And maybe you've lost interest in things that you used to enjoy.
Right. And, a lot of times people will experience feelings of worthlessness or guilt.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like excessive or inappropriate guilt.
Right. And then there are also things like irritability and anxiety, even difficulty concentrating.
Absolutely. And those are the kinds of things that can be tricky. People might be feeling on edge or, frustrated really easily, and they don't even realize that it could be connected to depression.
Yeah, totally. It's like your brain is just running on fumes, and you can't think straight. Now, I have to say, when I got to the physical symptoms, I was pretty surprised. We're talking fatigue and changes in appetite and sleep problems. I mean, who knew that those things could be like red flags for depression?
It's true. We tend to think of depression as just being an emotional thing, but, it really does manifest in our bodies as well.
It's like your body's trying to tell you something's wrong.
Exactly.
And it even mentions like unexplained aches and pains, things like digestive issues and even lowered sex drive.
Right. It can really affect all different systems in the body.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is. It's fascinating how interconnected the mind and body really are.
All right. So we've got the emotions, we've got the physical stuff.
Oh.
What about behavioral symptoms?
Yeah. So when we look at behavior, things like withdrawing from friends and family, that's a really common one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You might see people, procrastinating a lot or maybe relying on unhealthy coping mechanisms like, substance abuse or things like that.
Right. So it's like this domino effect. Depression starts impacting your mood, then your body, and then eventually the way you act and interact with the world.
Exactly. And that's why recognizing those behavioral changes is so important.
Yeah, it can be a real warning sign for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this whole spectrum of symptoms, emotional, physical, and behavioral. But here's where it gets really interesting. This checklist talks about different types of depression. I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah, there are actually quite a few different types, and they each have their own kind of characteristics.
Really? Like what? Give us a rundown.
Well, we've already talked a bit about major depressive disorder, but there's also something called persistent depressive disorder.
Persistent depressive disorder.
Yeah, sometimes called dysthymia. It's like a long-term, low-grade depression.
So it's not as intense, but it sticks around for a while.
Exactly. It can last for years.
Wow, okay.
And then there's seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, which a lot of people know as the winter blues.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely experienced that.
Right. It's related to changes in the amount of daylight we get.
And then we have postpartum depression, right, which affects some women after childbirth.
Right. Hormonal changes and, the stress of becoming a new mom can play a role in that.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly, there's bipolar depression.
Yes. Bipolar disorder is characterized by, these shifts in mood from extreme lows to really high manic episodes.
Okay. Wow. So we're talking about a whole range of experiences here, it seems like.
We are. And each type, might need a different approach to treatment.
Yeah. I can see why it's so important to get the right diagnosis.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've got this symptom checklist down, and we've just touched on these different types of depression. But before we dive deeper into those, I think we should tackle some of the common myths about depression that this checklist calls out.
Yeah, that's a great idea because there are a lot of misconceptions out there.
For sure. And they can be really harmful, because they prevent people from getting the help that they need.
Okay, exactly.
So myth number one, depression is just laziness. Yeah, come on.
Right, like you just said, come on, people with depression aren't lazy. They're struggling with a real medical condition,
It's like saying someone with a broken leg is lazy because they can't walk.
Exactly.
Okay, myth number two. Only weak people get depressed.
That's just not true at all. Depression can affect anyone, regardless of their background or their personality or their resilience.
Right, it doesn't discriminate.
Not at all.
And then finally, and this one is like my pet peeve, just think positive and you'll feel better.
I know, right?
If only it were that simple.
Yeah, positive thinking can be helpful, but it's not a cure for a clinical condition like depression.
Yeah, you can't just will yourself out of a chemical imbalance in your brain.
Exactly.
Okay, so we busted some of those myths and hopefully cleared up some confusion along the way. Now, this checklist touches on something that I found super interesting, and that's the connection between diet, sleep, and mental health.
Yeah, this is a really important area, and we're learning more about it all the time.
I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing, right? What we eat and how well we sleep can actually have an impact on our mood.
They really can. Our brains need specific nutrients to function properly, and when we don't get those nutrients, it can affect our mental health.
So this checklist actually lists a whole bunch of brain-boosting nutrients like SAMe, St. John's wort, folate, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, vitamins, magnesium, zinc, even probiotics. I mean, it's like a grocery list for a happy brain.
It kind of is, and it's important to remember that, food is just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But it's an important one.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of important pieces of the puzzle, let's talk about sleep, because I know I'm a total grump when I don't get enough sleep.
Me too. And it turns out that poor sleep can actually make depression symptoms even worse.
Ugh, a vicious cycle.
It is sleep deprivation throws off our hormone balance, weakens our immune system, and it impairs our cognitive function.
So what can we do about it? Any tips for, better sleep hygiene?
Well, one of the most important things is to stick to a consistent sleep schedule. Going to bed and waking up around the same time every day.
Okay, consistency.
Exactly. And avoiding screens before bed is a big one.
Oh, yeah, the blue light.
Right. That blue light messes with our melatonin production, which is the hormone that helps us sleep.
Right. And maybe a relaxing bedtime routine could help too.
Yeah.
Like a warm bath, some music, reading a book.
Those are all great ideas. Anything that helps you wind down and relax before bed.
And if all else fails, there's always melatonin supplements. Right?
Yeah, melatonin can be helpful for some people, but it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor before taking any kind of supplement.
Yeah, for sure. Good advice. Okay, so simple but effective tips for improving sleep and hopefully in turn supporting better mental well-being. It's pretty amazing how interconnected everything is, isn't it?
It really is. Taking care of our physical health can have a huge impact on our mental health and vice versa.
For sure. Well, that brings us to the end of part one of our deep dive into depression. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground already.
We've talked about what depression is recognized, the different types, busted some myths, and even explored how diet and sleep play a role.
And in part two, we're going to be diving even deeper into this depression checklist, uncovering more insights and practical tips for navigating the complexities of depression. So stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive. So in part one, we talked about the basics of depression, and we busted some myths and even started to touch on this connection between our mental health and things like what we eat and how well we sleep.
Yeah, we really went beyond that simple idea of depression just being sadness.
Right, and this checklist really emphasizes that there's so much more to it, like those less obvious signs of depression, the things that you might not immediately think of as being related to a mood disorder.
Yeah, it's like being a detective. You have to look for those clues.
Exactly. So let's put on our detective hats for a minute. What are some of those symptoms that people might not even realize are connected to depression?
Well, one that comes up a lot is procrastination. When you're depressed, even small tasks can feel overwhelming. It's not laziness. It's like your brain is just stuck.
I totally get that. Some days it's like even getting out of bed takes so much effort.
Right. And then there are those unexplained aches and pains, headaches, muscle tension, digestive issues. Those can all be linked to depression.
It's like your body's trying to tell you something's wrong, but you don't even realize it's related to your mental state.
Exactly. And even a decreased sex drive can be a sign. Depression can zap your energy and your interest in things you used to enjoy, and that includes intimacy.
Wow. But it makes sense when you think about it.
It does. And again, it just highlights how important it is to pay attention to these signs and to get help if you're experiencing them.
So speaking of getting help, this checklist also talks about healthy coping mechanisms, and I think that's a really important point. It's not just about recognizing the problem, it's also about finding ways to deal with it in a positive way.
Absolutely. Healthy coping mechanisms are like tools in your toolbox. They help you manage stress and regulate your emotions and build resilience.
Okay, so what kind of tools are we talking about?
Well, exercise is a great one. It releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Even a brisk walk can make a difference.
I always feel better after being outside in nature. It's like it has this calming effect.
Right. And then there's mindfulness and meditation. These practices help you focus on the present moment and quiet those racing thoughts that can come with depression.
I've been hearing so much about meditation lately. Maybe I should give it a try.
I highly recommend it. There are lots of apps and resources that can help you get started.
And what about connecting with loved ones? Isn't social support important too?
It's crucial. Talking to friends and family or joining a support group can give you that sense of connection and belonging, which is so important when you're struggling.
It's like having a safety net, knowing you're not alone.
Exactly. But this checklist also warns against unhealthy coping mechanisms, things like substance abuse or self-harm or isolating yourself completely.
Right. Those are like Band-Aids that just make the wound worse.
They might provide temporary relief, but they don't address the underlying issue, and they can actually make things worse in the long run.
Okay, so we've got our detective hats on. We're recognizing those subtle signs, and we're thinking about healthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Now, I want to circle back to something we touched on in part one, that connection between diet, sleep, and mental health.
Yeah, it's fascinating how much of an impact our physical health can have on our mental well-being.
So it's not just about therapy and medication. What we eat and how much we sleep can actually make a difference.
They absolutely can. Remember that list of brain-boosting nutrients we talked about? Those play a crucial role in how our brains function.
Okay, remind me about some of the key players.
Well, omega-3 fatty acids, which you can find in oily fish like salmon, those are really important for brain function and mood regulation.
Oh, so that's why they say fish is brain food. And I've also heard a lot about vitamin D.
Vitamin D is often called the sunshine vitamin because our bodies produce it when we're exposed to sunlight. But a lot of people are deficient, especially during the winter months. And studies have shown a link between vitamin D deficiency and depression.
Interesting. So getting enough sunlight or taking a supplement could actually help boost your mood.
It's definitely worth considering, especially if you don't get a lot of natural sunlight.
Now, what about those other nutrients on the list, like SAMe and St. John's wort? I've heard those mentioned as natural remedies for depression.
Yeah, SAMe is a compound that occurs naturally in our bodies, and it plays a role in mood regulation. And St. John's wort is an herbal supplement that's been used for centuries to treat mild to moderate depression.
So do they actually work?
There's some research suggesting that they might have antidepressant effects, but more studies are needed. It's important to talk to your doctor before taking any supplements because they can interact with other medications.
Okay, so it's not a quick fix. But it sounds like incorporating those brain-boosting nutrients into your diet could be helpful.
It's definitely a piece of the puzzle.
And speaking of important pieces, let's talk about sleep. I'm a big believer in a good night's rest.
Me too. Sleep is essential for our mental and physical health. When we don't get enough sleep, our brains just can't function at their best.
And this checklist mentions that sleep deprivation can actually worsen depression symptoms. But it also gives some good tips for improving sleep hygiene.
Right. Things like sticking to a consistent sleep schedule, creating a relaxing bedtime routine, avoiding screens before bed.
Those are all great tips, but sometimes life gets in the way and it's hard to get a good night's sleep.
I know what you mean. And in those cases, melatonin supplements can be helpful. Melatonin is a hormone that regulates our sleep-wake cycle, so taking a supplement can promote sleep.
Oh, so it's not just for jet lag.
Not at all. It can be really helpful for people who are struggling with sleep disturbances related to depression.
That makes sense. But it's always a good idea to check with your doctor before starting any new supplements, right?
Absolutely, better safe than sorry.
So we've talked about diet, sleep, and mental health. It's amazing how interconnected everything is, isn't it?
It really is. Our mental and physical health are so intertwined.
Well, that brings us to the end of part 2 of our deep dive into depression. We've uncovered some really interesting insights from those subtle symptoms that often go unnoticed to the ways that diet and sleep can affect our mood, but there's still more to explore.
There is. In part 3, we'll delve into those different types of depression in more detail, and we'll leave you with some thought-provoking questions to consider as you continue to learn about this complex and often misunderstood condition.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been really digging into this depression checklist, haven't we? And it's amazing how much there is to learn about depression. I mean, from those hidden symptoms to the connection between our mental health and things like diet and sleep. It's clear that it's way more complex than most people realize.
It really is. And one of the things that I think has been so important to emphasize is that depression isn't a sign of weakness. It's a genuine medical condition. You know, it deserves attention and care just like any other health issue.
Absolutely. It's not about just toughing it out or, trying to think positive. It's about recognizing those signs and understanding the different types of depression and seeking help when you need it.
And this checklist does a great job of breaking down those different types, which can be really empowering for people. Because when you understand the specific type of depression that you might be dealing with, it opens up a whole new world of treatment options and, coping strategies.
So let's revisit those types. I mean, we briefly talked about them in part one, but I think it would be helpful to dive in a little deeper. So we've got major depressive disorder, we've got persistent depressive disorder, seasonal affective disorder, postpartum depression, and bipolar depression. I mean, that's a lot.
It is, and each one has its own unique characteristics. For example, persistent depressive disorder or dysthymia, it's like a low-grade chronic form of depression. It might not be as intense as major depression, but it can linger for years, and really cast a shadow over someone's life.
It's like a constant drizzle compared to a thunderstorm, but even a drizzle can really wear you down over time.
Exactly. And then we have seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, which is triggered by changes in the amount of daylight we get. It's most common during the fall and winter months when there's less sunlight.
Yeah, the infamous winter blues. I've definitely felt that myself. But for some people, it's way more than just, feeling a little down. It can seriously disrupt their lives.
Right. And light therapy can be really effective for SAD. It's amazing how our bodies respond to natural light.
Then there's postpartum depression, which affects some women after they give birth. It's this hormonal and emotional roller coaster that can be really, really tough.
And it's often misunderstood. People might think, oh, it's just the baby blues, but it's a serious condition that requires professional help.
And finally, we have bipolar depression, which is characterized by those really intense mood swings, from deep depression to those manic episodes.
That's right. Bipolar disorder is completely different than the other types of depression we've talked about, and it requires a specialized approach to treatment.
Okay, so we've got all these different types of depression, and each one comes with its own challenges and, potential treatment paths. So it seems like getting the right diagnosis from a qualified mental health professional is really important.
It's crucial. Self-diagnosis is never a good idea. A professional can really help you figure out what you're dealing with and develop a personalized treatment plan.
Now, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, the importance of healthy coping mechanisms. I mean, this checklist has some really great suggestions for ways to manage depression, in a positive way.
Absolutely. Things like exercise, mindfulness, spending time in nature, connecting with loved ones. Those are all powerful tools for supporting mental well-being.
And it's not about being perfect. It's about finding what works for you and making those healthy habits a part of your daily life.
Exactly. It's all about building resilience and giving yourself the tools to get through those tough times.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into depression, what is the one message that you really want listeners to take away from this conversation?
That depression is treatable. It's not a life sentence. There is hope and there is help available.
I love that hope. And those are powerful words. And this checklist is such a great starting point for anyone who wants to learn more about depression and recognize the signs and take that first step towards getting support.
It's like a roadmap guiding you towards a brighter and healthier future.
Beautifully said. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are therapists and support groups and hotlines and so many resources out there to help you on your journey.
So take a deep breath, reach out for support, and know that recovery is possible.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into depression. We hope this episode has been helpful and insightful, and maybe even a little bit hopeful. Remember, you're not alone, and there's help available. Take care of yourselves and each other.
Thanks for tuning in to the Cenario Podcast. Don't forget to visit Cenario.com for more expert tips, articles, and supplements designed to support your mental health. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe and share it with a friend. Until next time, take care of yourself.